if you're following this project, you need to stay up with it. It is your responsibility to sign up on the Orangevale site, website that the county has, and then you'll get notification of the project when it's being heard at the next hearing body, whichever that is. So, we don't know when that's going to be. It's all up to the county in that process. So this is how you keep in touch with what happens. The project can change from here to the next hearing body. It can change sometimes drastically, and sometimes it comes back, and sometimes it doesn't. It all depends on what those changes are. But that is, if you're involved with that, you want to know what's going on with it. Okay? Yeah, we used to beat her up all the time. Big guy.
And I'm Chris Mahoney, principal planner.
Stephanie Townsend, I'm an deputy clerk for the Board of Supervisors.
Did we chase away the other guy already?
No, we
We're just training.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yep.
Because that was a tough meeting that we had. Okay, all right.
So quick introduction on this project. So the project that's in front of you is a 9-lot. There'll be some other advisory meetings that it will go to prior to being heard by the planning commission as the final SAP or something like that.
And then if there's people who aren't on the list or more than 500 feet, we can always add them at your request.
And you would be notified, so just so everyone knows, you would be notified prior to the final hearing date, because that'll be the next notice meeting, will be prior to the planning commission hearing.
We can attend other meetings.
Yeah, wait. Let's hear the project first. All right, so go ahead.
My name is Patrick. So this is a 5-acre lot, 5 acres original. There's existing dwelling on the property. 9 lots are, they all half an acre lots, minimum. The way we designed, we went around, we're saving maximum as much trees as we can. The only trees that we're taking out is this right here, it's in a right-of-way tree because of the Class A improvements. And this 2 trees, right, 2 oak trees, that's it. All the other trees, oak trees, are staying in the property. So that's was one of the biggest concerns that we're So, well, okay, go ahead. As far as well, so the private lane here, it's a full fire. The radius where the private port will serve. It's 30 feet wide, so it's fully fire department fully approves this road as well.
Where is that on there?
Right here. So this is the private road at the port. So that's Apple Beach Avenue. It's going to be the port and lots basically to the left and to the right of that the driveway, the private drive. What else? Is there anything else you want to add or?
The existing.
So existing house, the plans is to demolish and replace with a new house.
And whatever's across the driveway from the garage.
Correct. So it's, yeah. So this existing house and the existing garage. So all that will be demolished, and you have new dwelling will be built.
So are you guys going to build houses? You're going to offer?
We'll open it up to you guys in just a few, so we're going to talk to you.
Track you down. That's a joke. Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
How long will the easement be in that, basically? I mean, if it's approved, because that's one of the issues, is that easement.
What easement?
The road.
The new one?
Yes, right. How long will that?
It stays with the property. Basically, once it's done, the easement's recorded, the private recorded easement, basically. And it stays right, and it stays basically where each lot has access to that.
Okay, so it would be like 100-year easement or just?
As long as the parcel is there,
Okay, all right.
right?
Yes.
Okay. And then I know what we had a situation on our street. Where does the easement, and Maya said in here, I just couldn't understand it, is that, does the easement start from, you know, you've got the street here. Does it start from the middle of the start at the end? The reason why is because who owns that piece of the street? I know it's private, but we had a situation in our street anyways, that's a private road, where some guy said he owned half of that street. It was in his property line, so he could do whatever he wanted with it.
So you're referring to the actual private street and the lots that come with the private street?
Right.
So once the private street is recorded, and my observers, you can answer the better. But usually, once that easement is recorded, it's a private easement, it's a shared easement, it's a shared road. So there is nothing that you can't just say, well, as I said, Steve can probably answer this better than I can.
It's a question on the private road easements.
Sorry I'm late. I got stuck in the office.
You can answer the question.
Typically, we put the parking on one side wherever there's fewer driveways, give us more room. But in this case, there's the same amount of driveway. There's less driveways, I mean, on the north side than there's south side, because there's 4 driveways on one, there's 4 on the other, but it's narrow. But we try to keep them all on one side, so you are back and forth.
So which side of the street are we doing?
Well, we haven't really picked out which side. We kind of put that in the design, and we do the civil plans, we have a striping plan and a signage plan, and we kind of decide. But if you want to pick a side, you can pick one now if you like. It probably doesn't matter either way. You can't park on the cul-de-sac area.
Right.
So this area is excluded from parking. So it gives you this area for parking, 2 driveways, or this area, which will have 2 driveways. But they're pretty long. They're over 180 feet long, and a parallel parking stall is 24 feet. So you could probably get 4 stalls over here and a couple more over here. And also, these are half-acre lots, which enable people, when they build their homes, to create, larger driveways. It's not like your typical 60 by 100 foot lot, where people are limited by landscaping requirements and such. Because these are large lots, we don't know where the houses are going to go exactly, but we know that we have a 20-foot driveway. It enables them to put some parking on site if they need to.
Yeah, what I was getting at is that, cul-de-sacs typically get people that park straight in. And then it kind of blows up the cul-de-sac. So,
Legally, there's signage and no parking in cul-de-sacs, but I know what you mean. People pull in, there's nobody there, and it looks like a big area there. This is all just pulling.
yeah, I mean, almost everyone you see is like that. So, I don't know. I guess that the county can figure that out if they want. Okay, any other questions? I just have one person that wants to talk, so. You got to hear that.
A few questions. First of all, there's an easement road in between my house and where this property is, which part of it is owned, I think actually half of all of it's owned by that property. And then the three houses, mine and the 2 houses behind me own the other halves. I'm wondering if there's going to be anything done with that as far as making...
And King Trust Estate. And I live right across the street from this. This proposal is going to, well, first of all, historically, we were granted speed bumps because of a study that was done, and they determined that we had reached our maximum capacity on the roads to slow down the roads. This proposal is going to increase the travel on Beach Avenue exponentially. And this property is covered with protected 100-year-old plus trees. And to have someone suggest to park or get through on Beach Avenue because of the school activities. So what is being proposed, I would suggest should be dramatically scaled back. It is going, you can't run large equipment. My father was in construction. You can't run large equipment over that ground and not destroy more trees. You're going to gravely impact the area significantly. And I am the one who's going to inherit my mom's home. So what my mom left me as her legacy to me, I lose the value of the home that my parents worked so hard to achieve. And so do the other people in the area. And I would advise you to, send these nice folks back to the drawing board and come up with something that's a little more doable for our community, because this is going to gravely impact us.
The ground accepts the water and it runs across our street, fills our gutter, and then runs over their driveway. There's a curb and gutter there now. So what my question to them was on the drainage is there going to be an improved drainage plan where all the cul-de-sac and everything ties to an existing storm drain? Because in my mind, if you make that, 40-50% hard surface between the roads, the driveways, the storm drains, and it just all surface drains, it's going to run over the street. There's not much of a crown in the street. And then it heads toward Central, toward the school. And it just runs, you've got there when it's raining, it's running across the street, it's filling our and then it's running over into our driveways, into my door, toward my front door, and my neighbor John and their driveway. And that's been happening for quite a few years. So that was my question on the drainage, is that, if they make that all hard surface, it's all just going to continue to run off. And we're going to have a problem. If I call my insurance company today and tell them, hey, they're doing this thing and it may flood me, they're going to probably cancel me tomorrow. What am I going to do? So we don't know how that's going to work out. So that was my question on the drainage. Is it actually going to tie to, so there's the question, is it going to tie to a design storm to get over to Central and Hazel because they want to beat them? So if we're putting another 300 cars a week on that road, and I think that's where Debbie was coming up with, if they scale it back, making it less invasive on the terrain.
If you want to answer that.
Sure, I can answer.
Sure.
Drainage.
I can answer all the comments that said, so I just want to get them all
Okay.
mentioned.
Thank you.
We did it when we did it. I don't know this year.
We haven't seen anything.
Preliminary grading plan.
Well, that's election.
To show the drainage. There's been a preliminary storm drain system design. It's all on this plan, submitted to the county. We are putting it here, there's an existing storm drain system in the street across the street here. This pipe goes down and runs through the subdivision, goes to the outfall creek.
Right.
We've studied that all the way from here. We tied into that drain. This plan shows the drain being put in here, the drain coming up here, picking up the roadside curb and gutter, or the subdivision curb and gutter. We're bringing a drain up here, drown back here, back where the oak trees are. The reason we're bringing this drain in the back here is because this is an oak tree protected area, and we don't want there to be standing water and such back there because that can affect the trees. So we put a storm drain back here to pick up any excess water. We put a drain up to the north and then down the side up here, and put a drain back in here to pick up the drainage. So every lot's been looked at to pick up the drainage. The county drainage ordinance allows one lot across another, and then it has to be picked up into a system. So these lots drain off one, on their own to the side.
Right.
This lot goes to this lot, gets picked up into a system. This lot goes down to this lot, gets picked up in a system. These systems all come together and get put into this pipe. This pipe then connects and goes down to the creek. As we know, there's also a storm drain system up here that she was talking about up by the soccer fields. There's a drain up here that picks up this street, that goes into the soccer field, cuts across the soccer field, and ties into the same system over here. We worked closely with the Department of Water Resources before we even started this project to discuss drainage with them, because I've been doing this a long time, and drainage is always an issue with the neighbors, and we thought about that from the get-go about drainage. And so none of this water will be surface drain, collect up in a public storm drain system and tied into this storm drain. We have we told Water Resources that in our analysis of this existing system, if it happens to show that the additional flows from this increase to a point where they don't facilitate the drainage, they're going to condition us to upsize or do whatever we need to in that downstream system that's existing, so that we keep the system that's there working, and if there's more water, and we'll handle it and make it bigger so it does work. So we're doing a drainage study to make sure all the storm drain meets the county standards per the drainage ordinance. As far as
So they're going to calculate that?
the shed areas were that large, where it would, if it did increase, it would be, hundredths of an inch type thing. So he said we could do the actual $10,000 drainage study at the time of improvement plans, rather than at this level, because it takes a month or two to do the study, and it costs a lot of money to do the study. They'll want the study done. It's basically to show this pipe here is big enough. It's not going to. So
just so you all know that those end up becoming conditions of approval from the Department of Water Resources on the subdivision map.
Okay.
And so as Steve was saying, that that level of study will be required prior to improvement plans being either final or submitted for the project.
And the other reason I think a lot of times they don't require the detailed study because there's a lot of topics, they don't really know what map's going to get approved, right? So it could theoretically change. The Planning Commission could drop a lot or two or whatever, right? So instead of, and there's not just drainage, there's other technical studies. So they condition it so that those studies are required based on whatever version of the map gets approved by the Planning Commission.
That sounds good.
And also, there's a discussion about grading and drain. I want to say, my client, when he came to me, first thing he said is, I want to save the trees. And we designed the subdivision specifically to save all those beautiful trees. It's a beautiful site. It's like a park. And we realize that. All these lots are natural grade foundation lots, which means they're not going to go grade big flat slabs, 3-foot cut and big fill, and they're going to build your natural grade foundation type, where they hold the grades and build the foundations up to the house. So there'll be minimal amount of grading on site for the houses. The intention is.
So they don't plan on tearing it?
Yeah. If the house requires, stepping up or whatever, they'll leave the grades on site as is, but there will be some grading for the driveways. We have to grade the driveways, and we may have to fill a little bit and cut a little bit to get the driveways. The tree, the arborist says is healthy, which we agree with. We're minimizing the grading to the cul-de-sac itself, and the lots are going to be left natural, and that each builder who comes in design their homes to step in and naturally build on the grade. So to answer your question about grading.
Right. So what we're talking here about is the map that's going on and the special permit to allow the private drive. We're kind of getting into another process. I understand. That's why I was mentioning before, you have to kind of follow this project as it goes on, because it could change. What we're seeing now here is we're just talking about us allowing to talk about the map, not the actual detailed design that's going to happen or how the storm and drain and stuff is actually going to work. Because that, we don't know that, it's going to change, or it could change as it goes on. So we're just dealing with what we know today, all right? So let's keep the questions related to that so we can kind of just stay on topic, okay? So, all right.
And the last thing that I heard talked about was drainage was one, Randy, so I tried to answer those: tree protection, tree saving, and the discussion about traffic. It's always an issue, and I want to say these 9 lots, like you said, it'll be 300 some a week. Divide that by 7, you got 30 cars a day, and you go 10 hours a day, that's 3 cars an hour. If you start averaging it out to how many cars get added to each avenue in a day, it sounds significant to the neighbors, I understand that, but in the big picture, when you look at the volume of the beach and you say, this many cars per day, per volume, it's hardly measurable, because it's not that many when you look at the big picture of all the cars coming in there, adding 30 cars over a whole day, that's 3 cars an hour. So I don't, and we did talk to DOT, and they said this site would not qualify to meet traffic studies or anything, because it was too small of an amount of cars. So that's kind of our input on the traffic part.
Okay, Sherry?
6438, right next door to that property. I own the 2 acres. Single-family homes, you said, correct? How high a fence? My living room is probably 10 feet from the property line. How high a fence are you going to be building? Because I don't want anybody looking in my living room.
The code allows up to a 7 foot.
7 foot?
Yeah, that's the maximum fence.
Okay. As you're going up my property, I also have a workshop back there, 900 square foot workshop. The Rice's property goes up, and there's probably a good 8 feet difference between where my barn sits and this property. So are they going to leave all this? Like you said, they're not going to grade, they're just going to leave it up like that?
Yes.
There's going to be, okay.
We're leaving, what you see there today is what will be there when they build homes.
Okay, because I also have 2 oak trees that are on my property that are pretty much right close to the property line. And that you might destroy those 2 trees. And all my trees are also being tagged.
Yes, they're shown on the map there. Those trunks are on your side.
Yep. That's it.
Yep, and we don't plan on doing any grading or any changing of the existing conditions.
Okay.
Plantings and landscaping around trees should stress minimum need for irrigation and so forth. So basically, do you guys have a copy of this? Have you looked at this? Are you going to be going by this? Is my question.
I have to say, I haven't read it recently.
Okay.
I've been doing this since 1980, so I've been doing this a long time. I probably read it back when I was younger, but I haven't. But all the things you've discussed, we plan on doing on this. Do minimal grading, save the trees, nothing under the, that's our plan.
I just want everybody to understand that that's what you're doing, is you're going by this, and that's what it sounded like.
We're good with that.
Well, and then if we're going to say that, so in your zoning, you could really have 10 lots, 10 spots, 10 houses there
Yes.
legally on that.
Yes and no. You know, when you look at the technical aspects, zoning-wise can, but when you take away right-of-ways and easements and roads and stuff, you really know the trees and all the trees that we're saving, and when we do what we want to do, we lose a lot. And I don't think you can get 10 unless you really start doing things against that ordinance. So you don't want to push it.
Yeah, that basically,
Sure.
yeah, you could.
Okay, let's close and take a vote on this. If anybody has any questions or comments. Otherwise, we're taking motion.
Quick question. The one house that is going to be on beach, I might be getting in the weeds here, but I know it's hard to get in and out of a driveway if you're on beach. I'm on beach. So is there any plans for that house? Because people backing out of their driveways on beach tend to. It does
I
make
think
it
that's,
a little too far?
yeah.
Okay.
You're gonna have to follow.
Okay.
I would interject that a good design for that lot would have a circular driveway.
That's what I asked.
Yeah, and I think whoever comes in with design review, that might be something that comes up.
Okay.
I do have just one statement about drainage.
Did you fill out a card?
I filled it out, it's right here. Turn it in. I live in the cul-de-sac on the Kingdale, which is Jacami Court. And the county's been on my property many times to work through the piping system for drainage on Jacami Court, and it comes off of Kingdale.
The process works is not really up to these guys. It's really up to the county to make it happen that it works downstream. So, and I understand that. We all have, Orangevale is notorious for having these issues. Almost every neighborhood has drainage problems and storm problems and water, issues. And it's an ongoing problem everywhere. The other side is you can't punish a homeowner for doing something that he's following all the rules, but somebody else can't. And I'm not defending this. I'm just saying this is a very common thing. You have to depend on the county doing their job as an agency of handling the kind of problems that happen. And, you know, in the 50s and the 60s, the county did not do a good job in out here. And we have a lot of issues like this everywhere, where, you know, you have storm drains this big, you know, come on. That's I appreciate that. And I think everybody, maybe in county hears that enough times, they'll do it. I think they've heard it for, 25 years. So, you know.
Well, on your statement was that as these steps go forward, that they are going to do a study from their connection point now to the existing drain that goes through the creek. That's what he said.
Yes, they're going to react to whatever Water Resources says to do. Now,
And if we keep up and go to the next meeting,
and
we can
express,
address that at that point and see how far along they've gotten.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, there's
To make sure.
essentially a fundamental requirement and philosophy that Water Resources implements, that new development can't make it worse for existing development. It's not necessarily responsible for solving a problem that exists per se, but it's not supposed to make the downstream flows cause more flooding. So that's what Water Resources will be evaluating when
Right.
they get the drainage study in, and sometimes if they can get improvements, they will. I'm not going to assert that that's going to happen in this case. I don't technically know enough, but they are supposed to be looking for ways that, you know, improvements that are going in might alleviate.
but, you know, Water Resources needs to know we have a problem here in this area. I'm guessing they know it, but if not, they need to know. So thank you very much.
So as far as Orangevale is concerned, we won't be meeting here anymore.
No, not unless something drastically changes and it needs to come back to, you know, here. If the county decides they want to hear it again at our meeting. But basically, no. Normally, never.
Can I go up and look at the plans?
Okay, thank you very much.
No, the next meeting is so we can do that now.
Okay,
I'm sorry, Steve, it's actually the plan commission. This one will be removed out.
Or do we want to define this?
okay, now on the agenda, if you guys want to talk, you can take it outside. Stay.
Steve, do you want to borrow the plans and go outside while we?
You can roll that whole thing outside.
Take the whole thing?
Yeah, you can, we got it from out there. Just roll it into
We'll let you go
the
have
hall.
a meeting outside.
I just got a line formed right here, so.
Yeah. Okay, next item. I guess, who is going to do that?
I'm going to do that.
You're going to do that, all
I'm
right.
going to do that. So you should have all received the package.
Yes.
That contained a memo, contained the board of supervisors staff report package, as well as an outline that staff has put together. And in the letter or the memo to the CPAC members, I mentioned that there was a board workshop on February 5th earlier this year, where the board held a workshop about CPACs, about sort of the function and the purpose of CPACs and potentially some improvements, and provided direction to staff. I included a link in the memo in hopes that you might have an opportunity to go back and watch that workshop. Because what staff has done is taken the guidance from the board, which I'll be completely honest, was not sort of a unanimous set of direction to staff. And we've gone through, rated this handout that has some proposals for consideration by the CPACs. And again, there was direction from the different board members on different topics, some of which were at odds with other board members' direction. And so again, what we've put together is our best understanding of the direction that was provided to us.
Or what might be a middle ground.
Or what might be middle. And so what we've done is broken it up into sort of buckets, if you will. So there's the purpose and function of CPACs, and then there's administration and training. So we've broken them up into those buckets along with specific proposals for each one. So kind of diving right in terms of what are the
Well,
types.
okay, before we go,
Sure.
I did not see the link to the workshop. If I did,
It's right here.
he probably said no way. But the overall emphasis of what I got here was, I'm trying to understand the purpose.
Okay.
So, could you just give me in a sentence or two, the purpose of why we're going from current to recommended?
Yeah.
It
Probably.
actually came up initially, the board members brought it up during the budget hearing, I believe. And there was a request by one or more board members to review the complaints, concerns about timeliness, continuances, lack of quorums, those kinds of issues. I think they've heard from constituent groups or other interest parties with some level of concern. And so
Okay.
they wanted to have a discussion.
That's what I got out of that was
Right, that's
speed
my thoughts.
and it was complaints from the building community. Yeah, since I've been.
The chair, I
so-
remember doing one.
I just kind of like, how does the perception get that we postpone things all the time?
And
I
think
feel
you
that
also
it may
have to
not
keep
be
in mind-
us, it
Right. I
may
think you have to
be
keep in mind that
7
there
of
are
the other
14
14.
That there are
Right.
14 CPACs,
Right.
each of which have their own bylaws, their own rules of operating. They do things a little bit differently. Some of them have problems with making quorums. Some of them continue items on a regular basis. Some are requiring, sorry, there's a flaw.
I know.
I wanted to have a discussion about, is that what they really want? How broad do they really want the CPAC to review?
And I think you all know that, occasionally there'll be requests for the water district to come out here and talk about their rate increases.
Right.
And this really
We've
isn't.
had plenty of
It
those.
really isn't a
Yeah.
neighborhood,
Right.
this isn't a neighborhood association or a neighborhood meeting.
Right.
It's really to get input on planning.
Staff doesn't know what to do with those, because when you look at the original formation documents from 30 or 40 years ago, the strict
Speed, blah, blah, blah.
So you're absolutely right that this proposal does not include that. However, it does allow for, if there is an item that is of significance and the entire board directs that item to be by the CPAC, they can do that.
I didn't see that. What I gathered, what I did is I tried to walk through traffic, and let's just get the word of traffic on Oak Avenue, and how would that fit in any of this?
Yeah.
And I couldn't see where the CPAC could bring that up as an item to discuss to the county, as we have a problem. It kind of sounded like we've got to go to the Board of Supervisors to get them to allow us to talk about that.
That's right.
Right, so it sounds like that's a concern, so you like.
That's a
that as
concern.
comment.
I mean, to me,
If
We
they're
only-
greater than 600 square feet, then you do see them through a special development permit.
And would we still see those?
Correct. You
Okay.
would.
I think our intent in the chart is that the normal planning stuff should say exactly as it is right now.
Okay.
well, it doesn't say
No change.
that. I mean,
It's,
it kind of implies something different than what we see now.
Okay.
So whether or not
Planning
that,
items, I think we mean the way it is now, but it isn't, I think your comment about the traffic and using this forum as a workshop to work through traffic with like DOT, that would be changed. That would be, in this version, more restrictive. So I think noting that you have a concern about that is what we would have.
okay, so under the next item, it says item scheduled by the COB with concurrence of the entire board. You're talking about the Board of Supervisors.
Yeah. So that would be like when they were trying to publicize the changes to voting. I think voter reg went out to all the CPACs about the voting centers and all that. So the board could say, voter reg, go use the CPACs for this.
Okay.
Okay, so that was the first topic, the types of items. Moving to the purpose of the review, there is a somewhat a change here as well in terms of the purpose of the review. I talked a little bit about it earlier in terms of what we're really looking at is, if you go down to voting, I'm sorry, we're jumping around a little bit. but
Well, no, I'm
if you
still
go
on.
down to vote,
I'm still here. Purpose of review, it says recommended approval or denial of her project. And recommended option, that's gone.
well, it
So
says
that just says-
advisory, it says an advisory recommendation, so that would still be there. And if you go down to voting, and sorry,
It
it's
says
bouncing
CPAC
around,
leaders vote.
you would still be voting, you're voting on the transmittal of that referral sheet that the clerk's office provides. So you would still be providing a vote, but the vote would be on the comments that would be transmitted to the hearing body.
Okay, so let's just walk through this. We had this project here. So we had, what, 7 people? And we had 6 of them or 5 of them. So there's 5 comments that you put in the minutes, I assume. And that doesn't reflect at all
The community.
the community.
It's
So
the 3
here we
neighbors.
have, and even if we have 10 people talk, 10 out of 14 people that showed up, that has nothing to do with the community, or very, very tiny amount.
Right.
And that's going to get the wrong, especially if we don't vote on it, that's the wrong concept.
So in the case of the project this evening, even though there were comments that were brought up by community members in attendance about drainage and traffic and a couple of other issues, fencing and grading, those wouldn't be the comments that were transmitted as part of your vote. I think ultimately where you all landed on that project was generally just being supportive of the development as proposed. That's sort of where you landed, and that's what would actually be transmitted. Now, if you did have concerns, then those would be addressed through that referral. We would say the CPAC was generally supportive of the project, however, noted the following concerns: drainage, traffic, and so on and so forth, if those were concerns. So this doesn't give sort of more weight to the 3 or 4 people that show up to a meeting that just bring up issues. It's still ultimately the CPAC that is providing the referral based on on the comments that want to be transmitted.
Okay, that's exactly what I want you guys to go away with, is that concept. So, that doesn't, I don't feel good about it here.
Right.
What you say is exactly what I want to
Right.
happen, but I don't feel.
You don't feel like it's accurately portrayed,
We have a
what I'm saying.
whole room of people that are unhappy, because happy people don't come to CPAC. Happy people have better things to do, and they're busy and whatever, so unhappy.
Well, save as many trees as you can, you might want to, but you could do that now, right?
Okay.
So I don't see it dramatically different, other than,
Which he seemed like he was trying to save as many trees as he could anyway.
Right.
That lot is full of trees.
having said that, the board members were all over the place on the voting. Some of them did speak to the fact that they didn't want to vote at all, that they just wanted notes, but no actual recommendation. Others felt very strongly that there still needed to be a recommendation. So we're not really sure where the board is going to end up. This was sort of our attempt to find a middle ground between the comments expressed by the board.
I feel like they need a recommendation still, and I feel like we need to see stuff early in the planning process, not wait till it's gone through whatever, because then we have a room full of unhappy people. I don't want that next door to me. I don't want, we don't live next door, so.
100% follow it if you recognize that it's become out of date. It probably, Hazel Avenue obviously has changed dramatically.
So it's okay.
That's not going to recognize.
My street has changed a lot.
Right, some of the things that.
Yeah, we don't want to look at that plan too closely.
It's a guidebook, but it doesn't have to be your hard and fast.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and that's what I
It
like
changes some of our
to know.
roads from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. So we don't want to go by that really well,
Okay, so only use it for,
when we want.
okay.
When it suits.
Right.
When it provides you the
Yeah,
guidance
but
that you think is
Okay.
appropriate.
But then let me ask our board here, is that if we had a situation, just like you were saying, Lorraine, we have 14 people here that, even if all of them were dissatisfied, we have 14 people here that we're listening to. But how many like you said, are perfectly content with the way things. So to me, I'm listening to all those who didn't show up.
And I think too, because Orangevale, so everyone wants the community or the rural lifestyle, and I don't want them to develop their property. I like to watch the chickens walk across. Great for you, but you can't. They have the right, you know? So I feel like that's where we are here.
Right.
I mean, maybe it's different in other CPACs, but we hear a lot of, I don't want to look at that. So.
Okay, let's get back to this.
So, moving on, number of CPACs, not a whole lot to talk about here. There was some discussion about trying to consolidate, or a recommendation to consolidate some of the CPACs. We've spent some time thinking about that. I don't think that at least we're considering that to be a recommendation, but again, that's something that the board could direct us to do some.
Supervisor Frost spoke pretty firmly about her community identity and not wanting to muck with that, so I don't see her.
Yeah, even though we're next, I don't know if you remember, at one time we were going to become a city with Fair Oaks, and we started working on that and found out that they're from Mars and we're from Earth. So,
I think we heard Supervisor Frost articulating.
Yeah. So that kind of like, I'm not going to do that.
So we talked about this next item a little bit already too, when items are heard currently. They're somewhat all over the place, but we want to codify that and make it so that it's really early in the process. Again, this review is not only helpful for you, but it's helpful for us to have it early, to hear from people that may not have contacted us or may not be willing to come downtown to talk about a project, but are coming out to the community. So we prefer that be early for entitlement projects. Certainly when there's larger planning efforts like a SPA or a community plan update or something like that, there'll be an engagement strategy, right, based on the project. So it might be multiple check-ins with the CPAC and workshop formats. So under administration, there was discussion about these 14 bodies, all of which have different numbers of members. I think the Delta may have 14 or 15 members, 12 sitting, but I think there's 15 or so, 13 on the board. It's a big group, and so what we wanted to do is try to create some consistency. We thought that 7 seemed like a good number. I don't know if that's what this group is.
Ours is 7.
7, perfect.
We have 5 sitting right now.
5 sitting. So we're looking at trying to the extent possible, make it consistent across the 14 CPACs. So what we're recommending is 7-member body.
That's the board, the district offices.
Okay. So that could be why we don't have a full, why we don't, why we're not full.
A similar 2 or 3 member quorum is kind of where I've heard other people.
No, I just,
one person.
Yeah, one is not a good number.
Plus, I feel if it's just one, so say it's just me and all of these people, what if they're like, well, it was only one and the rest of them weren't there?
Right.
Like they may feel like they're not getting the best they could get. I don't think one would be a good idea.
I don't think so. I mean, my thoughts are 3, and that's because you have an odd amount. I would like to see 3. And there's a difference, though, between conducting business and actually voting.
Right.
So one can take it and, okay, they can hear it, they deserve that time, and then put everything in the notes, but nothing be voted on until.
And so what's the point of coming?
Well, yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, so I can give you an example of how this played out. So an unnamed CPAC with a large master plan where we have a hard time getting a quorum and seated members. And 2 of the members were conflicted out by the project. And they were the only 2 who showed. So basically, one of them showed up, started the meeting and left. It was a workshop. There was no recommendation coming forward. And so then they left staff and we were fine. And because there was like 50, 60 members of the public there.
See, then those people don't feel like they're getting a good.
We held the meeting, but it was a workshop. There was no recommendation coming out of it. And so that was just kind of an odd situation where it was like, there was no members that.
But I feel we should stay whether we're opposed or not.
But see, that's different.
But we used to, there's two things that I need to bring up. One is we used to have our own secretary, so she would take notes based on our direction of how we wanted to respond to the neighborhood. Because like we are all saying, you get unhappy people. The people that are okay with it, they don't show up. So you have to kind of filter all that stuff out, and that's what we try to do in the minutes. And then I would take those minutes and I would send them to the next board, wherever this project was going. So I'd give it the surrender when he was here, and I'd say, do something to that. So I would do that the next day or the day after that. So basically, nobody saw those minutes except for the secretary and I.
Well, they're posted online too.
Well, and then we would come back and we'd vote on them. So everybody would get.
And that's being posted on the CPAC webpage currently.
But
And
see,
so what we talked
See, we
about
need to make sure that's good though too, because there was some miscommunication
Right.
last month about who voted for what and who seconded and all that, so.
And so on a moving forward basis, what we've been talking about doing is actually on the CPAC webpage, uploading the transmittal or uploading the referral sheet to the webpage so that people in the community can go back and look at what happened in each meeting and what was approved and what's the record, I guess, if you will, of that item.
Well,
The thing is that we still didn't get approval of that. I mean, we never signed off on that. I mean, yeah, I signed off on this thing today.
Right.
I'll do that. But we don't ever see that, really.
Right, again, that's where I was saying, on a moving forward basis, there's going to need to be a lot more interplay between the CPAC and the chair with the clerk's office in terms of, so what do you have down in terms of the referral?
Did you get that? Yeah.
Did you get that?
Okay.
And that's going to be on the referral sheet, and so you all know when you're taking your vote, that these are the comments that are going to be transmitted as part of that referral sheet.
Well, let's say who voted yes and who voted no on that as well.
Yeah.
We haven't really decided that. That's a recent addition, not something we traditionally, historically did.
Well, we used to do that.
I think that's,
We did?
I kind of think that's important, actually.
Yeah.
I think that's important, that
We
it
used to have
says who voted yes and who voted no.
Yeah, we used to do that. It has a yes, 4 yeses and 2 noes or something. And then we would write in there.
And there was one meeting, this was a while back when I was the chair. There was one meeting where I had voted no, I was the only one voting no, and the applicant asked why I voted no. And whoever was here, I don't think it was Leanne, I don't remember, but whoever was here said, yes, he has the right to know why you said no. And so I have an answer.
They vote and why they voted and.
Do you do all of them, Stephanie?
I do the agendas and action summaries, but
She
I
doesn't
don't go to every
Okay.
one.
Yeah, they're all over the place.
Right, you would
Yeah.
never be at home.
Yeah.
Some are on the same day too, so I
Okay.
can't be in 2 places at once.
Right.
But some of them are, I would say that the chair has a big role in how these meetings are conducted and the decorum of the group and the community. The discussion goes and what the members say about each item. And some of them are better. Right, I mean, it's appropriate if you came in midway through the presentation or didn't hear all of the presentation, but in very limited circumstances, is that an appropriate decision to make on something?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's things like
Can't
that.
vote, we shouldn't be up here.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so moving on a little bit, voting. So we already talked about voting, that the recommendation here would be to vote on the comments conveyed by the referral sheet.
Okay, real quick though, the
Uh-huh.
bylaws, there is going to be one set of bylaws.
Correct, for all,
Okay,
for all
that makes
14
sense.
CPACs.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a challenge now. It's like, oh my gosh, which of the 14 bylaws, pull them up.
Yeah. What's their quorum say? Is their quorum
Oh my
a
God.
majority?
The number of times I've gotten called at home before you started at 7 o'clock. Okay, wait, we have a question, and like,
So will we get a new set?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So we talked about the first part of voting. So here, in terms of bumping and appeals, so this is a big part of the proposal and big part of what we heard in terms of direction.
Okay, but wait, before you get there,
Yeah.
let me just go back. What I would, to reiterate what I had a problem with up here, is that I would like the wording to go back, that we are going to approval or denial.
We need to kind of talk about a little bit more in terms of, I think our initial reaction is that, the group would decide we're either in support of, we're supportive of the project and we have these comments that we want to transmit. Thinking about how we handle when there's dissenting opinion of the CPAC. I mean, I think generally what we would probably do is say that 2 of the 3 members were supportive of the project and there were some dissenting comments, perhaps.
Well, a good example we had, I don't know if you were here, was the I don't even know what it's called. Behind California Fitness Center, there was a development.
Oh, the
multi,
yeah.
Purpose, not multi-purpose.
Yeah, they went
multi-use.
someplace else. What's the co-housing?
Co-housing.
Yeah.
And yet,
I think I was here.
it was 4-3.
Yeah.
And it was brutal. I mean,
Right.
It was a very difficult thing.
Yeah.
And then it came back. They changed, I voted, it was a negative one, and it was 4-3 not. And I voted because of this one condition on, they had one side that was just screwed up, whoever did that was just, and they came back, and then they had fixed that one side. Well, then the county said, well, no, you can't do that, it's going to start all over again. Then it was like, well, we voted on it again, and then it was 5-2. So it's kind of like, 5-2 in favor. And it was crazy that, the number changed a whole lot based on that condition, but it was, it got out of sync with the county and the process, and it should have never come back, and then it was, but it was just a big mess of, and I remember getting a call from somebody saying, well, which summary is the right one? It was 4-3, you voted no, and then you voted yes. And it was like, well, they didn't change anything. It's like, so it was really tough to have just that straight number thing. That would be really misleading to county people, just to have the straight thing. But then the other side is, if you're not going to have comments, then that's where we're at. I mean, I'm just hearing you. I mean, just giving you some situations that happen, so you can kind of figure out.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, correct me if you're wrong, I thought one of the things that I heard the board articulate was some citizens at some CPACs not always understanding the advisory nature. Like, you did a really good job tonight of portraying that it's advisory and you need to go downtown and
we always
there's
do
another
that.
hearing.
Yeah.
And then I think everybody,
It's a good idea to take items that might have some controversy out of a staff-led hearing body.
I think the classic example, there was a really controversial religious facility in Orangevale.
Oh, yeah.
That 10, 15 years ago
Oh, there's one
was
recently.
ZA that was heard at the staff level, and it really needed to be in front of a full hearing body.
The one across the street from Casa.
Yeah, I remember, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's uncomfortable when staff are faced with, 100 people. It's just, not.
Yeah, right. It's,
Right.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
So I think we still think that makes sense to keep in the proposal. That's still here.
And there are other options. If the board doesn't want that to happen, then we'll revisit that. So.
However, at this time, based on comments that we heard from the board, we are looking at removing the free appeal. So basically, you have the ability currently to send it to the planning commission and to offer a free appeal to the board of supervisors for those items that are of community-wide concern.
I'm trying to think we've only done that a couple times. Appeal, yeah.
And both of them were, I don't think that's a good idea, but I mean, I know where they're coming from, if you have somebody that's abusing that. But I don't think that's a good idea, because the process that, both the ones that
Appeal costs, the private appeal costs, I don't know where, we haven't done that yet. We're sort of waiting for this. And then,
but I think we, in our opinion, that high appeal, that high barrier for a third-party appeal is appropriate, given that the CPAC process allows for some community discernment prior to it being elevated to the Board of Supervisors.
maybe you come up with something that you can have one appeal every 5 years. And for free, or, every X amount of years. And then after that.
I'm sure there's probably, is there CPACs that have way more? Oh, I mean, it's.
I would say that there's probably been like 10 in the last, 10 years or 5 years?
they're not that common.
They aren't that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand why the big deal, but to me, those two items were very, I had 2 board supervisors come up and talk to me after, but they were very impressed with the community. So,
Like that's.
But
If you're gonna, comments are gonna say we hate it, and they're like, I wanna take my hate and
move on.
Okay.
yeah, works for me.
Free.
And then conditions of approval. So again, we've had some issues here that we're trying to clean up with other not-to-be-named CPACs. Recommending conditions, and then if those conditions aren't followed through, then they felt that should have been a denial, that really was a denial. It wasn't an approval because their conditions weren't adhered to. And so what we're looking at cleaning up as part of this process is that conditions of approval can be recommended by the CPAC. That shouldn't be a determining factor, but that in the actual transmittal of the recommendation, but it's a suggestion. And if the applicant agrees to it at a meeting, then that's something that can be incorporated into the project.
Sometimes it's hard at this level, even for the staff planner, to know whether there's going to be a legal nexus or an absolute requirement. And so if the CPAC thinks that they're voting, maybe their comments are very positive because they think Y and Z are going to happen, and then you get later in the process and you realize that there's some technical reason, they want a masonry wall, but then it turns out there's an easement underneath it with gas pipes, and you're not going to be able to build a masonry wall, and then they would have written a denial if they'd known that, but, so it gets complicated.
I kind of think of, well, if you're going to have, if you put an emphasis on that, let me start. The applicant, if we say you have to build a wall, not a fence, but a wall, and he agrees to it, he's going to agree to it, or she is, because they want the vote. So knowing full well that when they get to the next place, they don't have to
But
do
does
it.
that go into that's what the secretary's gonna write, but that's just like the Petovich where he wanted to have the landscape.
I think the way that we would see that playing out is that would be part of the transmittal. So it would say that the
applicant
agreed to it. Now, when it gets to the planning commission, if they take that out, or if they say that they're not going to do that any longer, it's up to the planning commission to make a determination. I think staff will spell that out in the report. If the applicant agreed to this, here's either why or why not they're saying they can do it now. Up to the planning commission to decide if they want to impose that as a condition or not.
But then you guys hear those people at the meeting, right? If you're absolutely opposed, you're going all the way down the line to say your opinion.
Right.
So, okay.
What I'm getting at, I guess I'm going to bring up an example that we agreed, this is Ottoman Hills. big development. We agreed with the developer. We had 2 county people, a planner and I want to say a transportation guy. And we all agreed that we would not build the meandering walkway.
And they did it anyway.
And they did it anyway, and we had it in the minutes, we had it there. I talked, at that time, the planning commissioner from our area was from Poland, and I knew him. I talked to him, he said, he went back and looked at the paperwork, and it was not in the paperwork. He agrees, we agreed to it, and then put it into the action summary, right? Is that the right term?
Yeah.
Right.
Put it in the
It's the
motion.
referral. It's the referral.
When you're making the motion too, you would
Put it in
state
the motion as well. So any COA that we agree goes in the motion as well.
that. Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that the ultimate hearing body can't decide to take it out, but we want it to be crystal clear what your thoughts were.
Right.
For the record.
Okay.
It's worse when there's not, hinged on something and then we get it in the staff report and get portrayed correctly.
Okay.
So, moving on to the last couple of items, outreach and noticing, currently.
Disagree with.
Yeah, this
Disagree
doesn't
with
work
it?
for us.
This doesn't work for Orangevale, for sure. So
500.
500 feet here, if 500 feet, if we all lived on the same street, him and I would get it and she wouldn't get it.
Oh.
Right, so 500 feet from the project is not
I just,
people that are still really
I
close.
should have put some clarifying language here. So we mail to 500 feet or 30 distinct property owners. So if we can't get to 30 distinct property owners within 500 feet, we keep going. We can go a mile.
Well, do you guys do that now?
Yes, we do it now.
So what's different about this is we're talking about sending it not just to the person who owns the home, who's listed in the assessor's parcel, but also to renters. And, yeah, so
Which
whoever's-
renters probably aren't gonna,
They won't care.
they won't come.
I think it
You know,
depends.
you
I
never
think
know.
we've had issues, this is particularly important in South Sacramento, North Highlands. We've had a number of use permits that are for, so I don't know if we've told the CPAC members this. I haven't been to all, I haven't been to your meeting in a while, but one of the things that we instituted recently is having the clerk's office bring the printout of who the items were mailed to for each one, because we'd come to the meeting just like this woman here was saying she didn't get a notice. Well, we brought the notice so that we can check against
And
it.
you're like, well, your name and address is
Yeah,
on
she
here.
was on there.
So maybe you thought it was junk mail and threw it away. Right.
We've had this happen on,
That's
so this has
good,
been
that's
super
good.
helpful. And
Yeah.
so now you
That
guys
is
know, so if people mention it during the meeting, oh, I didn't get a notice.
We've
we'll check
always
with-
said, we've always said that.
Now we know what happened to yours.
Apparently, we
I
our
didn't throw it
notices
away.
are very exciting. They look very governmental, that's a fact.
So then the last item is training, and so I think what we're hoping is that we can do a little bit better job at training. We've had a lot of conversations with the clerk's office.
And Robert's rules and Form 700, but that would be for all the boards and commissions. But
That's
we're
kind of
still-
like the ethics training thing I did. It had some Brown Act stuff in there and.
Yeah, but we're working on that. We're trying to get a date possibly this year.
Okay, now, I'm gonna throw out something that you guys can, throw it away. One of the things that my wife and I were talking about, purpose of review, and, I really went off on this forum. That first word was like, he sent me into Mars country. And I thought, there's an app out in the world that is called Neighbors.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And,
Next door?
Yeah, or Next Door.
Oh,
Next door.
Yeah.
Next Door. And I'm not saying use that thing, but the concept behind it is that, that I think to kind of get the happy people to respond to a project, there's two problems that we have. One is we don't ever hear the happy people. And the other one is that most of the people coming they haven't looked at the project at all. They don't even know what you're talking about. So they come here and they have an overview of a plan, a project, and then you can have people comment on it. And have the people comment be really busy. She could like, prove, if somebody wants to come in, they have to show a utility bill from their house, and then, okay, that gets them at that place. And then they can vote, and then they can come in.
You've gone out to the county and signed in, and you can get every review, you can get all of that, and they email it right to you. And then you can see what's on the agenda, and
We'll
I
actually
sent
send
a
it out.
specific notice for both the planning commission and the board, right? We have to go to the planning commission, or we
I guess we will go to planning commission.
Well, because it's going to be zoning code amendments,
It will
right?
be, so yeah.
We have to go through the planning commission.
so there'll be 2 meetings for us to go to.
Yeah, because it's going to have accompanying zoning code and county code amendments, so zoning code amendments
Okay.
are legally required to.
Yeah, cool.
Okay,
All right.
meeting adjourned at
8:33. Oh, I was gonna say, look at your phone.
Thank you, that was a good discussion. And a good meeting.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.